This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
This moment was years in the making, with groundwork by a coalition that included legal aid and hunger relief groups that worked to end lunch shaming.
And everybody who was cheerleading for us, because this is for you guys, and it's worked. And I'm so happy.
This is a bill for everyone in Minnesota, whether or not you eat lunch in school. This is a bill that's going to make Minnesota a better place for all families.
For the governor, a joyful moment with the children who will soon be seeing big changes in this lunchroom.
Oh, my God. And you could tell he was like so shocked that the kids all hugged him like that. And the other side, of the aisle will, somehow say he's a pedophile. Honestly, they are so grotesque. They are so perverted. They are so sick and twisted and weird, as Tim Walz would say. I just want to give you just briefly, a list of the things that he has accomplished in Minnesota because in his second term, he was able to get voters to give him a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate in the state of Minnesota. It wasn't just a school lunch bill, okay? Universal school meals is what that was. I remember playing that, and I was like wiping tears out of my eyes. It was the most moving, amazing, joyful moment, and I didn't really know that much about Tim Walz, except to say that I knew what had happened in Minneapolis and that he was hip to it. He understood that Minneapolis was invaded by outside white supremacist agitators. He understood that, and so you sort of keep your eye on people who are that astute, that awake, that aware of how to best protect their state, their cities as a governor, right? And so I understood, to pay attention to him, number one. Number two, I had also understood that he was a former school teacher, a football coach. I knew he was a House member, but he was a House member that, was just one of 435. I got to admit, it wasn't like, an AOC made, massive news or, Cori Bush, by the way, has to make it through her primary today. It wasn't like that kind of a thing. It was just, a guy who had been a school teacher, a football coach, a guy who, served 24 years in the National Guard, only, left the National Guard when he started to run for public office, right? And looked a lot like Santa Claus. And who doesn't love Santa? So his first term was marred by COVID, and he also was fighting with Trump constantly about getting ventilators. Do you remember when Jared said, oh, no, the federal stash of ventilators and PPE and all that stuff, that belongs to the feds. That's ours. That's not for the states. You can't have that. I mean, he was literally fighting with the president of the United States of America to get freaking ventilators.
I just hope he, and I'm sure he won't, just don't engage with the buffoonery that Donald Trump wants to be in. We know these debates are not real life. I've been governor long enough. I served under both with President Trump and President Biden. And with President Trump, it was always, fighting with my neighbors to get ventilators during COVID and telling my citizens to drink bleach. With Joe Biden, it's about real solutions. So I just think be himself. Give us a positive vision for America, one that impacts our families, and just don't get caught up in the grievance stuff that Donald Trump will bring.
So that was kind of how, we were introduced to Walz, and that's how we first met him. Now he gets a second term after the crazy COVID crap where he had to fight with the president of the United States to get ventilators for dying people in Minnesota, okay? And Trump was saying, go to the governors, go to your liberal governors. Why don't you, figure it out amongst yourselves kind of thing. It was very sick. It was really, really twisted. And, I mean, it was like sadistic, okay? It was like barbaric. Really, it was ugly and just devoid of compassion. I don't even want to say devoid of compassion. It was mean. It was just plain mean. Donald Trump's position on how you should fight with your neighbors, meaning other governors, to get ventilators. Anyway, here's what he did in his second term. As I mentioned, the red flag laws for guns, for roommates, for parents, for court officers, for police to actually take guns from people who are a danger to themselves or others, right? That's unheard of in hunting country, right? You must be either for the Second Amendment and its totality, meaning every lunatic, fringy person could have weapons of war, or you're against it. Well, that's not the truth. He protected abortion with something you can look it up called the Protection of Reproductive Options Act. Okay. He also did the paid family, medical, and sick leave with a 0.7% tax on employers. He did a bill for trans kids that if the conservatives are so bizarre. They want to hunt people really badly. They want to hunt women who, to track their pregnancies. They want to hunt women who leave states to go to states where they might be able to attain an abortion. They want to ban using like the roads in Lubbock to go through Texas, to get out of Texas, to get an abortion. I mean, and the other thing that they want to hunt is trans kids, okay? They literally want to hunt them. And so a lot of kids who feel, parents too, families who feel like they're not welcome anymore in their states, they're moving to places like Minnesota. And so he did a trans refugee bill, okay? I swear to God, you're a refugee in your own country now. If your sexuality doesn't comport with what, certain people think it should be, I don't even know. But if you are... on the lam from Alabama and you ran to Minnesota, they can't come and take you. So he had to actually pass a bill like that, a refuge bill where people could safely live and not be transported or what's the word? You always say, do we have a...
extradition?
Yes. Where people could be extradited back to Alabama. I swear to God. He banned conversion therapy. He actually made it so that recreational marijuana is cool. It's okay. And you know why I really like this? Because, I don't really imbibe. I mean, I have. I'm not saying, I'm a pot virgin or anything like that. It's just, it doesn't come up often in my schedule that I would have 4 hours to kill. So I don't usually, but I do love to grow things, and I love to grow marijuana. But it's still illegal here in Florida for my lousy 3 plants that I have, which are just about ready to harvest.
Allegedly.
So he made it okay for you to have 8 plants. Woohoo! 8 big plants. Man, if I could grow 8 plants without worrying about my sheriff, neighbors, plural. Yeah, all the sheriffs in the world live in my neighborhood. All of them.
8 plants is quite a bit.
That's a lot. It's great. Listen to this. This is like one of the most beautiful things you ever heard in your life. So when they made medical and recreational marijuana legal in Minnesota, he actually caused for any marijuana conviction to be expunged from anybody's record that was convicted of any marijuana violation. And then those people who particularly came from neighborhoods of color, they were given first priority to apply for any marijuana cannabis business. They were given priority status to apply for licensing for any cannabis-related business, whether it was bakeries, whether it was edibles, whether it was a dispensary, whether it was a recreational place, whether it was a smoke and vape shop where you could buy the actual, cannabis or CBD even. He prioritized people who had been convicted of marijuana felonies, not only to be expunged on their records, but to take priority in any related business opportunity. It's sort of reparations. It's beautiful. Undocumented people living in Minnesota get driver's licenses. Why? Well, this was backed by law enforcement. Law enforcement wanted people to have government ID. So while they can't use their licenses to vote because, it's like when you're under the age of 18, you can't use your license to buy beer, right? Same thing for voting. There's a certain thing on the license that shows that you are not a citizen and you're not eligible to vote. But it is government ID, and this is something that the police wanted. Strong backing. Religious organizations wanted it. Law enforcement wanted it. He restored voting rights for felons. He said this is a second chance country. 50,000 people in Minnesota are now eligible to vote where they weren't before. And then the thing that you know about, the universal school meals package. That is quite a record for a governor who's only, 2 years into his second term? She picked well. This is a beauty. Get ready to win, everybody. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.